Yo, I'm Yovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. I just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers fell 112 to 105 to the Denver Nuggets in Game 3. Denver has taken a commanding 3-0 series lead. They have won 11 straight games against the Lakers, and they have effectively ended the Lakers season. The Lakers are going to lose this series most likely in 4, if not 5 games. Maybe they will show some fight in Game 4, but this series is over. No team in NBA history has ever come back from down 3-0, and I don't think this Lakers group, with how these 3 games have played out, are going to be the first one to do that, especially against this opponent. Maybe if it was a lesser opponent, maybe if there had been some weird fluky circumstances that led to LA losing those games, but it has been the same script every single time, especially in this series. LA has led at halftime in all 3 games. They have had double-digit leads in all 3 games, and yet they continue to lose. They've been outscored by 42 points in the 3 second halves of this series, and they're on the brink of elimination, facing an early summer with some hard decisions. They're going to have to make some tough decisions with the roster, and they're going to have to take a hard look at the coaching staff. And if this is a group that has the confidence of the locker room and can take them to the next level, having been most likely swept by Denver in consecutive seasons, if not maybe going 1-8 combined against them. So things are dire. Things are the Lakers season is on life support, and really it's just a matter of when the Nuggets pull the plug on it. I don't mean to make it sound that grim, but that is where it's at right now. If you are talking yourself into a Lakers 3-0 comeback or LA making this a series at some point, I applaud you. More power to you, but I don't see it. I think Saturday is most likely a funeral. LA will just be marching toward their season ending. I think Denver has a psychological edge on them at this point, really a psychological chokehold on them, where no matter LA's lead, I thought Denver played their worst half of the series in the first half of Game 3, and yet they were only down 4 because of offensive rebounds and LA's inability to make open shots themselves, and Denver being able to pack the paint and force the Lakers into taking threes that they just were not connecting on. So you guys know the drill. We are going to hit on some of the numbers from this game. Let's get into it. Anthony Davis had 33 points and 15 rebounds, continues to be arguably the best player on the floor. I would still lean Jokic, but AD is at least making that a conversation. It's really hard to fault AD. He ended up playing 43 minutes, so this is the second game this series. He's played at least 43 minutes. He was 14 for 23 from the floor, was taking it to Aaron Gordon, was taking it to Jokic, got Jokic in foul trouble early. He had 5 offensive rebounds and was attacking the glass and giving Denver some of their own medicine, although they ultimately got the better end of the offensive rebounding battle. But 5 fouls for him. He was being aggressive defensively. It's hard to fault AD for this, and I think LA did some nice adjustments in terms of continuing to use him as a screener and attacking Aaron Gordon and not putting AD in the corner as a decoy. So that was one thing that LA did better in this game compared to Game 2. Rui, 5 points, 28 minutes. I think the 28-minute, 2 rebounds as well. I think the 28 minutes is too low. And I know Rui has not played well in this series, but again, when your alternatives are Jackson Hayes, who was a DNP CD, or Taurean Prince, who is 6'6" and doesn't rebound, I think you have to go with more LeBron, AD, Rui, especially when Denver's routinely throwing out long, athletic wings, guys who are getting offensive rebounds and exploiting LA's lack of rebounding and lack of size on the perimeter. So I think Rui, despite a poor game by his standards, and although he was 2 for 4, hit the Lakers only 3 for a while there until they hit a few threes at the end of the game. Rui did not play well, but I think he still should have played more. And 28. And again, I said in my adjustment episode, I think Rui should be playing at least 35 minutes, as like a baseline. I fundamentally disagree with the choice to play him that few minutes, despite, again, him not playing necessarily great. I think it's better than the alternative of just going smaller. LeBron had 26 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, and a block, 12 for 20 from the floor. Just 1 for 6 on threes. He really struggled from beyond the arc. Just 1 for 2 from the free throw line. So LeBron was frustrated at points in this game. He felt like he wasn't getting a great whistle. Lakers as a team were just 12 for 17 at the free throw line, 70.6%. So that is low in terms of attempts, and that is a poor percentage to shoot from the free throw line. LeBron, like, I think overall, like, solid game for him, and continue to play with better pace and get downhill. I think 6 rebounds is a little low for him playing 42 minutes, especially against that front line. So I think LeBron, and it's tough to ask him to play that with that level of physicality and aggression for 42 minutes, but that's what you need at this point in the season. And I think the Nuggets have been able to take advantage of LeBron not necessarily boxing out or hitting them as hard as he can in the paint. D'Angelo Russell, I'm going to touch on this one. This is one of my takeaways, but a disappearing act again. This is now twice in this series, and really 6 out of the 7 playoff matchups against Denver, to say nothing of his regular season struggles against Denver, including getting benched in the fourth quarter of the last matchup against Denver. So D'Lo goes scoreless, 0 for 7 from the floor, 0 for 6 on threes, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, did have a steal and a block, but only played 24 minutes. He got benched for a lot of the second half, did not close the game. LA ended up going more with Gabe Vincent and Spencer Dinwiddie in this one. They almost matched D'Lo in terms of minutes. And this is the problem with D'Lo, right? Like, and I've had people come at me that I'm a D'Lo hater, and that he's clearly the third best player on this team. And I don't know how you can watch the Western Conference Finals and watch this series and still make the argument that D'Angelo Russell is the third best player on this team. Like, Austin Reeves is just flat out better, and Austin Reeves has not had a great series himself, but the defense that he has played against Jamal Murray again had an inefficient night, 8 for 21, and part of that is Gabe. Gabe's done a really good job against him, but Austin has also done a solid job against him. And Austin had 22 points. This was his best offensive performance in the series so far, but I think Austin at least gives you a level of competitiveness, a level of defense. In this one, had 5 rebounds, so he's been active on the glass in the series. Had 6 rebounds last game. Had 4 steals in this one as well. So like, Austin is a gamer. He is a winner. He's a competitor, and I think in terms of tough decisions, D'Lo is going to be right at the top of the list, probably right behind Darvin Ham. Mentioned Austin, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals. 8 of 17. Did hit a few shots late to boost those numbers. Did not have the best shooting night. But again, he's hounding Jamal Murray. He's defending KCP, chasing him around screens with Gabe as the guy on Jamal. And again, 4 steals, 5 rebounds. Like, he's contributing in several ways. Overall, a better performance from the Lakers bench in this one. Spencer Dinwiddie had 8 points in 22 minutes. That was his first points of the series. Gabe Vincent also scored his first points of the series, 4 points in 20 minutes. Gabe had 4 rebounds. Spencer had 2 and 3 assists. Taurean Prince had 7 points in his 20 minutes, though he only had 1 rebound. And it continues to be confounding to me that the Lakers go with these small lineups with Taurean at the 4 and 3 guards against a Denver team that has just killed them on the offensive glass and in the paint. And yes, the Lakers have been selective in terms of those groups typically only play 1 to 2 minutes, and they're typically playing against Denver's bench and Denver's smaller units. But with Nikola Jokic on the floor, because the last couple of games have been with Jokic on the floor, like, he's one game he got an offensive rebound, got fouled. Another one tonight, Peyton Watson got an offensive rebound. Like, I just don't get the Lakers playing small against Denver. They're not getting the benefits of small ball. The benefits of small ball are spacing out your opponent and attacking them off the dribble and hitting threes and bending their defense until it breaks. And they're not doing that with these small lineups, especially because they're primarily, it's like Gabe, Spencer, Taurean. I think it was Austin or D'Lo in this one. I think it might have been Austin. It's just way too small of a lineup. And I don't, and then defensively, they are not preventing Denver from getting downhill, running their offense, and they're not keeping them off the glass. So I just don't really understand the logic behind playing some of these lineups. And again, it's only for a minute or two, but a minute or two can swing a game. And Torian at the 4 has been -6 in 6 minutes, and it's only 6 minutes, but this has been a very close series. And I don't think the Lakers should be playing any harmful minutes, even if they're technically innings eater minutes where you're trying to get certain guys a rest. Like I've said it before, LeBron, AD, and Rui, like you need at least 2 of those 3. I would include Jackson in that. Clearly, they don't want to play him in this series, but the other 3, you need at least 2 of those on the floor. And instead, LA's been pulling Rui and LeBron as they did during the regular season. And that to me is a mistake. And even if it's only for a minute or two, they've been losing those minutes. On the Denver side, Aaron Gordon had a playoff career high 29 points, also had 15 rebounds, including 5 offensive rebounds. He kicked the Lakers' ass tonight. He was arguably the best. I know I said AD versus Jokic for best player on the floor. Like it might have been Aaron Gordon. I would entertain that argument. He was incredible tonight. MPJ 20 and 10. Only hit a couple threes, did not have the best shooting performance in that sense, but was 8 of 16 overall. Nikola Jokic nearly had a triple-double, 24 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists. And Jamal Murray, again, struggled from an efficiency perspective, 8 of 21, but had 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists. Denver overall had 14 offensive rebounds, outshot the Lakers at the free throw line for the second time in 3 games, 19 for 22. Only shot 17% on threes. The Lakers shot 18%. And yeah, I mean, Denver continues to win I'll pull it up here. Fast break points, 25-14 for LA. Points in the paint, 70-60 for LA. But the rebounding margin, 51-38 in Denver's favor, including 14-8 in offensive rebounds. Both teams shot 48.9% and were 44 of 90 exactly from the floor. Really came down to the free throw difference of Denver making 7 more free throws than LA. But it's time to look at some bigger picture things. Put this game behind us. There's really not much else to take away from it other than Denver's just better than the Lakers. They have their number. They've beaten them 11 straight times. They're likely going to sweep them. And it's time to start looking toward the future. So takeaway number 1 for me is it's over. And I said that earlier in the show, but this is over. The Lakers season is over. We can have the funeral right now. The Lakers are not going to win the series. They're not going to be the first team to come back from down 3-0 to win a series. Again, especially against this opponent, not with the way that they've let go of the rope in these 3 games, not with the way that they've let go of the rope at various points this season, not with Anthony Davis and Darvin Ham trading barbs in the last couple days through the media. This does not seem like a team that is fully on the same page. And it's starting to show with the cracks and how they're losing this series. And I think the Lakers need to take a hard look in the mirror and evaluate where things went wrong. To me, it started early in the season with minimizing Rui Hachimura's role off the bench and eventually benching Austin Reeves, then sticking with Taurean Prince post in-season tournament, continuing to tinker with the rotation, reducing Rui's minutes, benching D'Lo, reducing his minutes, having that stretch there where Austin, Rui, and D'Lo all were coming off the bench, which was just blasphemous. It never made sense. I was writing it at the time. I was saying it on Hoops Tonight at the time, and it just 3rd, 4th, and 5th best players, 3rd, 4th, and 5th highest paid players, all coming off the bench in reduced roles of 18 to 25 minutes or so, and still it was only a 3-game stretch, but 3 games too long, 3 games too many. And I think that the Lakers just playing small and playing Torian at the 4, starting Torian for 50 games when the lineup data was suggesting it was not working. And really, again, Torian being the last resort in terms of the Lakers started with D'Lo, Austin, and Torian next to LeBron and AD. And Torian was the one who outlasted D'Lo and Austin despite clearly not being on their level in terms of the caliber of player or fit around those guys. And as we saw when the Lakers finally made their run, it was starting Rui Hachimura, which even then took a Jared Vanderbilt injury, and they're originally going to start Jared Vanderbilt. And who knows what alternate universe, like how things would look had Vando started, earlier in the season, played more earlier in the season, and had he not gotten injured, and so there's a lot of things that go into it. Like I look at the injuries too, right? Like Vando had 2 major injuries. Rui had several injuries. Gabe missed most of the season. They didn't add Spencer until the buyout market. So, the acclimation process there wasn't entirely seamless. Cam Reddish was in and out of the lineup. Christian Wood. Max Christie was not playing for various reasons, despite, I thought, again, I've referenced this multiple times, but I thought that game in New York at the end of that 6-game road trip where Rui became the starter on February 3rd, I thought Max, he closed the game. He was guarding Dante DiVincenzo and Jalen Brunson, and just to me looked like a legitimate rotation player. To me, that game was as impressive, if not more, than anything Cam Reddish did all season. And yet the second Cam was able to return. He replaced Max, and both guys eventually got replaced by Gabe and Spencer. So mismanaging, in my opinion, the Max Christie situation as a 2nd-round pick, really not having a playable backup center. And Jackson Hayes had some good stretches and some good moments, especially late in the season and last couple months. Christian Wood was a sexy name that never lived up to the hype, as I was skeptical of the entire time, and as I wrote earlier in the season. And to me, I was clamoring for a more defensive-minded big man, a bruiser type, someone who could spell AD for 8 to 15 minutes in a playoff-type setting, and the Lakers never added that player. And now, as we saw, they're playing basically an elimination game with their season on the line, and they don't play a backup center. And part of that was because Christian Wood wasn't available. But I don't know if Christian Wood would have played and how much he actually would have impacted the game. He's not guarding Nikola Jokic. There are only 2 Lakers that have defended him reasonably well in this series, and it's been Anthony Davis and LeBron James in very random possessions. So putting Christian Wood on Jokic would not have made sense. And he would have potentially helped on the defensive glass, but he's shooting 31% on threes, so it wasn't like he was going to come in and start bombing threes. Really had an underwhelming season, even injury aside. So I think the Lakers have to look at, and then there's the whole matter of the coaching staff and the disconnect within the locker room that I reported on with Shams Charania in early January. That never went away. It got better. And I think winning certainly helped, and playing the right players and the right lineups and eventually getting there 50 plus games into the season helped things, but it was never quite the same. Still, I look at this AD Darvin situation. I look at there's always subtle shots from both sides to each other. With Darvin, it's always make or miss league. We could play harder. And Darvin's always taking shots at the players and never taking accountability, always on the defensive in terms of his blame, the coaching staff, and what's going on with them. And then you look at the players, and they're talking about different things. And earlier this season, it was the rotations and the lineups and them not being in rhythm. And there's been subtle shots at preparation and knowing what Denver's doing and all these little things. So, that's been pretty out in the open and pretty ugly, and not what you want to see going into a pivotal game 3. It's just the Lakers have a lot to evaluate in terms of the coaching staff and the future of that, and also the direction of the roster. This is now 2 consecutive postseasons. D'Lo's been benched in crunch time against the Nuggets, and if he can't play against the Nuggets, what do the Lakers do? If the Lakers are serious about winning a championship and he can't play against the Nuggets, how do you bring him back? Why would they bring him back? It doesn't make any sense. So they have some roster decisions to figure out. I think they got to add some better 3-and-D talent on the perimeter, on the wing in particular. Need to bolster the backup big man position and bring in a more defensive-minded bruiser type. And they got to figure out what's going on with D'Lo and what direction they're going to go in with that. So a lot of questions, not many answers yet. Stay tuned for more. I will be reporting this all out and analyzing all this. And so make sure you are subscribed and following my YouTube channel and the Buha's Block podcast feed. Takeaway number 2 is D'Lo's Denver disappearing act. And this is now 2 straight years that D'Lo has been unplayable against Denver. His game 2 performance was a mirage. That was an outlier. That is not who D'Lo has been against the Nuggets. And he had a hot shooting performance. Even then, he had a strong start in that game and cooled off. But looking at the 6 for 20 performance in game 1 and now going 0 for 7 in game 3, that is a combined 6 for 27 in 2 pivotal games in this series. And yes, game 2, it doesn't erase game 2 and what he did there. But to me, there is nothing that D'Angelo Russell can do the rest of this series that would make me feel comfortable with bringing him back if I'm the Lakers. Even if he leads them to a win in game 4 and then they lose in game 5, like he would have to lead them to a 3-0 comeback and be the best player or at least the third best player by a long shot over the next 4 games for me to consider bringing him back if I'm the Lakers. Like I don't see how you can do it if you fancy yourself a legitimate championship contender, because you're going to have to go through Denver again. The Lakers are going to have to remold this roster and figure out a way to beat Denver. And I think it might have to be with a new coaching staff. And I think it probably almost certainly has to be with a new starting point guard, because I also look at just the combination of Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell. There's a ceiling there, just given some of the overlap with both guys being at their best with the ball in their hands. And D'Lo was supposed to be able to play off the ball more because of the catch and shoot ability and the level that he shot for a majority of the regular season. But that is not translated. And yes, it's a small sample size. Yes, it's 3 games, but that's what the postseason is. The postseason is a small sample size. And we have a growing sample size now of he has played 7 games against the Denver Nuggets. And he's been benched in 7 games in the playoffs against the Nuggets. He's been benched in multiple. And he had his minutes reduced tonight. And Spencer Dinwiddie and Gabe Vincent were both better than him tonight. And if you're the Lakers, like he has his $18.7 million player option. We will see what he ends up doing with that. If he opts out, I think you have to just let him walk. And if you could sign and trade him somewhere and recoup something, that's an option. But just bringing him back, I know like you want to retain the asset, and maybe there's an argument for that. I don't know how valuable that asset is though, because I don't know if if I'm an opposing team looking at this, like maybe I'm a rebuilding team, or maybe I'm a low tier playoff team that just looks at the talent and says maybe if we make him the guy or like the number 2 and put the ball in his hands a lot more, like he can help us become exciting and do some of the things he did in the regular season. For a lesser team. But from a contention perspective, like there's just too many flaws there with the inconsistent shooting, the inconsistent performances in big moments, the defensive liability, and really a guy that you ideally have to hide on, against a team that has a player you can hide him on. But the Denver Nuggets have no one for him to hide on. The Boston Celtics have no one for him to hide on. So I just don't know if the Lakers are, again, serious about rebuilding a contender around LeBron and AD, winning a championship in LeBron's last season or second to last season, whatever it ends up being, next year and beyond. I don't think you could do it with D'Angelo Russell on the roster. And I already thought that entering this series. I have been more on the skeptical side of D'Lo and said that he had to prove it in the playoffs, and he has proved it in the playoffs, and he's proved that he just can't play in this series against this team. And again, even if he comes out and has a hot shooting night in game 4, it does not erase game 1 and game 3. It does not erase the 4 games that he played last year in the conference finals. It does not erase the 2 subpar games he had against Denver in the regular season. We have enough of a sample size that, again, even 1 or 2 more positive games in this series doesn't take away from the growing sample size that we have of this is just a bad matchup for him. They could put KCP, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson. They can bother him with length and athleticism, and that is his kryptonite in the playoffs. And also I think he's been very nonchalant. There were several possessions you could just see the lack of urgency with him, both offensively and defensively. There was a viral video of a huddle late in the game where he was just off to the side, sitting by himself, eating some food, and just tuned out. He declined to speak with the media afterwards. And I don't know what the Lakers do in terms of maybe he opts in and you try and trade him for something. I just don't think you're going to recoup the same value that he had around the trade deadline. And I think at the time, it was a questionable move to not move him and to not go for a DeJounte Murray. And the Lakers did make a competitive offer for DeJounte, but I think they could have gone a bit harder and tried to re-engage those talks late before the trade deadline. But part of the calculus was, look at how D'Lo's playing. He's playing like a fringe all-star. He's been our third best player, third best scorer. And that was just a mirage. He had a nice 2 to 3 month sample there, but I don't think he is a player that at this point, with the flaws in his game, can play at the highest levels of the conference finals and finals. And if he can, you need a very specific roster build. And I don't think the Lakers are going to be capable of putting that roster together around him. And he's always going to have to be at best the number 3, having to live with a lot of catch and shoot opportunities. And we've seen he's a very rhythm-based player who can go in and out of being hot and cold. So I think the Lakers are best finding a way to move on. I don't know how that happens. It could just be he opts out and leaves. It could be a sign and trade. It could be he opts in and they eventually trade him. But if the Lakers are serious about building a contender, I don't think he fits into that vision with what we've seen now over the last 2 postseasons. And finally, takeaway number 3 is too small. I think the biggest lesson for the Lakers, and there are several, and there will be more to come in the coming days and weeks. But for me, I think they did not prioritize, again, the backup center position enough. I said and wrote at the time that I think you needed one of Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood, but not both of them, because neither is a plus defensively. Neither is a great rebounder. I think Christian's a good rebounder, not a great rebounder, but neither is a bruiser, physical big. And you need that backup center who could come in and guard Jokic for 8 to 12 minutes and pick up 3 or 4 fouls and just be physical and rough and tough with him, similar to what Dwight Howard did in 2020. And I don't think the answer was Dwight Howard, to be clear. Dwight was worse in his third shift with the Lakers. I thought had some good moments, but he was not an every night player. And it's been a couple years since then. So I think if Dwight Howard could really help an NBA team, he would be on an NBA roster. But I looked at Bismack Biyombo as someone that I thought the Lakers should sign instead of Christian Wood. I think he would have helped more. I'm not saying he would have been a panacea in this series. He would not have been the savior, right? But someone of that ilk of the Lakers, I think needed to address this at some point. And the fact that they are relying on one true big man in a series against the Nuggets, it's really just AD. LeBron is a big wing, Rui is a big wing, and yes, they can play the 4 and even the 5 a little bit, but no Jackson Hayes and no Christian Wood, no Jared Vanderbilt, just because those guys are injured, and maybe they come back game 4. I doubt it, and I also don't know how much they'll actually be able to help. But the Lakers were just too small for this matchup. And it's interesting because against certain teams, against OKC, against New Orleans, they're the bigger team and they are physically overwhelming, and they're the ones getting the offensive rebounds and dominating the glass and dominating the paint and getting to the free throw line. But against Denver, they just look small. And that starting group, Denver has a size advantage at all 3 positions. Jokic is bigger than AD, and he's stronger than him. Aaron Gordon is bigger and stronger than LeBron. MPJ is taller than Rui and honestly plays with more physicality and will out jump him and get rebounds over him. So they have a physicality, and then go down the line. KCP is more physical and more athletic than Austin. They're about the same size. KCP might be a little bigger, but they're pretty similar in stature, but KCP is the more physical the player. And then Jamal Murray is definitely, he's about the same size as D'Lo, but also plays with more physicality and is just a tougher player. So Denver has that size and toughness and physicality advantage at essentially all 5 positions in the starting lineup, to say nothing of bringing in a Peyton Watson, a Christian Brown. Those guys are flying in for offensive rebounds. They're defending the Lakers guards at a high level. Reggie Jackson doesn't fit that bill. DeAndre Jordan got benched. Justin Holiday's kind of been meh this series, but Denver's top 7 has just had several physical advantages over the Lakers. And that to me has been a defining advantage in this series of Denver is just bigger, stronger, more athletic, tougher, smarter, and more skilled. And they just have a better roster. And we could look at guys 9 through 12 and say the Lakers have more depth, but really what matters is your top 7.5, and Denver has the Lakers beat there. And I think Jared Vanderbilt would have helped in a healthy series. I think it would be a 2-1 series right now in Denver's advantage. Lakers probably win that game 2. There is no epic comeback, but Jared Vanderbilt has some warts too. And it was against Denver that he was also played off the floor. And they really ignored him and would have tested him as a 3-point shooter. So I think he would have helped with his perimeter defense. I think he would have helped on the glass. But I also don't think he's necessarily swinging this in LA's favor. It's probably a 5 or 6 game series with Jared Vanderbilt. But Denver still ends up winning it just with their level of execution and shot making. And frankly, in my opinion, IQ. But then also size and physicality, athleticism, just overall compared to the Lakers. So I think the Lakers, as they consider the coaching situation and D'Lo and all these other factors and their free agents, and several guys have player options. So Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, and Cam Reddish could all be back, and it's out of the Lakers' control. But I think the Lakers need to look at getting bigger and stronger and more athletic, more defensive-minded, better defensive players, particularly on the wings and in the front court. And if they do that, and LeBron could stay healthy and continue to be at a similar level in year 22, AD could be healthy and be at a similar level in going to be year 13 for AD, I believe. That's a lot of ifs. That's asking a lot from those two guys as they age, but that's the situation that the Lakers are in. But my two biggest takeaways from a roster perspective are I don't think D'Lo can be their point guard if they are serious about contending. And I think the team needs to get bigger, stronger, more athletic to better match up with the Denver Nuggets, who are not going away. This is a group with most of the roster is mid to late 20s. Most of these guys are going to be around at some point. Maybe they're going to have to make some tough decisions with their cap sheet and their roster. But this group is going to be around for at least a couple more years, if not 3 to 4. And if the Lakers want to win a championship, they're going to have to go through Denver. And to get from 0 wins to 4, it's going to have to take a better roster and a roster designed to handle Denver. And I think the Lakers did not really approach this roster with that in mind. And I think it's a change that they're going to have to make this offseason. So with all that said, there'll be more from me in the coming days. We will see if the Lakers, if their season ends on Saturday in game 4, if they push it to game 5. But trust me, I will have plenty more reporting and intel and information for you in the coming days and over the next week. But that will do it for tonight's show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. For those on YouTube, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, liking this video, and commenting on it if you enjoyed it. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and your podcast platform of choice, please consider following, downloading, and leaving a 5-star review. Thank you again. I'll be back on Saturday night with a post-game reaction after game 4. I will talk to you then.